Welcome to the channel. I trust that you're doing well. In this video, we're going to take a quick look at the price action of Bitcoin. Do a little bit of a follow-up from my last Bitcoin video. There's also been over $500 million in liquidated leverage from the market. And at the time of making this video, Bitcoin has hardly moved. So that's interesting. We'll take a quick look at that. And we're going to take a look at the alt sector broadly speaking. I'm going to talk a little bit about bull market rotations, and I'm going to show you a couple charts that I pay close attention to as we move along through the bull season here and up to potentially a big altcoin season. So this is a way that we can kind of keep our thumb on the pulse just to see what's going on as things get more and more noisy inside this space. So if that sounds interesting to you, don't forget to hit subscribe, tick the bell for future videos, leave a like if you get some value out of it. Let's get into the video. And quickly taking a look at the daily chart for Bitcoin inside TradingView, we see a couple small little red candles trickling in over the weekend here. Now, in my last Bitcoin video, I was talking about how I was watching a price point of 100,000, psychological resistance, and I mean everybody and their dogs watching that price point. But I'm actually watching a price level slightly higher than that, which I've marked by this horizontal here, and that's coming in at 102,000. And that's the 1.618 of the Fibonacci extension, which I talk about in my last video. So make sure to go and check that out if you haven't seen it already, and I'll leave a link for you in the description down below. Now, sometimes close enough is close enough, especially when it comes to technical analysis. This is not a crystal ball. I mean, imagine if it was. We'd all be rich together. So sometimes close enough is close enough, and sometimes these price points will get front ran as well. So I'm open to all those possibilities. Being that it's the weekend, I do not trust price action over the weekend, so I'm simply an observer here. I see clearly, like everybody else, that Bitcoin's had a beautiful move over the last couple weeks. Monstrous move. So for me, this isn't an area where I'm making big decisions. It's just simply an area where I'm observing. Now, if Bitcoin picks itself up, tagging that 102,000 level or whatever, and starts to pull back from there, it's likely just a correction. And that correction will likely lead to another buying opportunity is the way I'd be looking at it initially. But of course, I'm happy to observe the price action as it reveals itself to me. I don't ever want to get too ahead of myself. It's exciting times. I do generally think, my opinion is that we're going into a really exciting phase of the bull market, but I like to take things level by level with the macro in mind and just be a little bit more conservative about my decisions. But something interesting to point out, two tiny little red candles, we can all see that. But check this out on X. Just in, 560 million in leveraged crypto positions liquidated in 4 hours as Bitcoin pulls back slightly from 99,000. Remember, folks, the more leverage that you use, the easier it is to get liquidated, even if Bitcoin has a tiny little sneeze like this. So trade safe, be careful, especially with high leverage around these price points. Of course, not financial advice, but I constantly talk about being very careful with leverage for this very reason. Don't get wrecked in a bull run. Not fun whatsoever. Now, anybody out there's interested in how futures trading works or has a little bit of experience with it, I do have a plethora of step-by-step beginner tutorials on how this works. So if it's just something you're interested in, you want to understand it more, check out some of the videos, and I'll recommend watch my Blowfin step-by-step beginner tutorial on how to trade futures. That's a non-KYC exchange. It's growing in popularity, and a lot of traders are trading over there and having a good experience with it. Now, if you're geo-blocked for whatever reason and you can't use that exchange, here's what to do. Just come over to my channel. Right here, come down, click where it says playlists. And what you're going to find is a library of free tutorials all the way from how to use self-custody hot wallets to how to use exchanges, mobile apps, how to do various things that's like set trailing stop losses, you name it, you'll find it here. And I'm going to be adding to these playlists and adding entire playlists going forward. But you can see Blowfin right here. If you click right here on view full playlist, you'll see right here, so I've got plenty of extra tutorials that go beyond just the beginner tutorial. So if it's something that you're interested in, and you want to cautiously take a look at it, these are free tutorials. They're there for you. Take advantage of it, please. Now let's quickly talk a little bit about altcoins and a potential altcoin season. So this chart right here is a really relevant chart and a piece of confluence that a person can use when measuring, when we're going to get a big alt season and things like that. And this is the Bitcoin dominance chart. A lot of you are probably already familiar with this, but if you're seeing it for the first time, this is measuring Bitcoin's strength versus the rest of the market. So when you see this chart trending to the upside, Bitcoin is stealing away market share from the entire crypto space. And when Bitcoin enters legitimate bull runs, you'll see this initially where Bitcoin's going up in price, but you'll see the dominance of Bitcoin goes up in price as well. And right now, we're just simply observing an uptrend. So a lot of altcoins right now might feel a bit stuck in the mud. while others will be running alongside Bitcoin. And typically the altcoins that run alongside Bitcoin, like the bigger cap altcoins, that's usually a strong sign. Some altcoins might feel like they're stuck in the mud as this is trending to the upside. It's like, why are my altcoins not moving? What we're looking for in a bull market is we're looking for rotations. So Bitcoin's making its big moves. We can see it clearly trending the upside, but you'll see these little pullbacks along the way, like this one right here in this area. What that is that's Bitcoin coughing up some of its market share to the alt sector when it has these little pullbacks. So this is showing us rotations of maybe it's Bitcoin profits or whatever, but we're seeing Bitcoin lose its dominance because the altcoins are catching small bids along the way. And you can see it all over the place. But as this is taking place, we still see that this is trending to the upside. So this isn't showing us that there's an alt season just yet, which to me is kind of exciting, because if there's altcoins that are moving up alongside this, you just wait. When an altcoin season kicks in, you'll see this whole trend begin to reverse for a period of time. Now, if we zoom in really closely here, we can see that just recently over the last, this is a daily chart, so over the last 4 or 5 days, Bitcoin did cough up a fair bit of dominance quite abruptly. Now, what's interesting is some folks might be looking at this, like the more cavalier folks, and they'll see these wicks right here. And these wicks did get a little bit lower than this last known low on the uptrend, right? We've got the higher high, higher lows, higher high, higher low, higher high. You get the idea. But we're seeing a lower low for the first time in a little while. Now, for me personally, I go with candle bodies. I'm a bit more conservative when I'm doing my technical analysis. I like to have as much confirmation as possible. It's just the way I like to move. I do get excited. I do think we're in a bull market. I do have my opinions, but I do like to take things level by level, while keeping all the macro in mind, just to preserve any gains that I might be making, and to let my winners run and my losers be as small as possible. But anyways, it's just a Bitcoin dominance chart that we're looking at here, so I won't get too carried away. But you can see that although these wicks are dipping down a little bit below this, we see the candle bodies, at least at the time of recording, are still closing slightly higher than that. Now, I'll respect this. I respect the fact that this did dip lower than right there. So for me, it's like, okay, cool. Maybe we got a half a point on the board here for Bitcoin to start coughing up even more dominance, meaning that it will flow into the alt sector. Now, what we'd be looking for is, say this is a lower low, then we'd be looking for lower high, and then lower low, lower high. And we want to see this downtrend. When this begins to downtrend, that's going to likely be confluent with a major move in the alt sector. So something certainly worth paying attention to. Right now, maybe we're seeing the first signs of that show up. Remains to be seen, but I'll be tracking this chart as we move along through this cycle. Now, another fun chart to look at is this one right here, and this is the Altcoin Season Index. Pretty easy chart to interpret. You can see that we're at a 41 out of 100 right now, but if we come down to the chart itself, very simply put, down here at the 25 read, which is marked up with this horizontal, is Bitcoin season. So Bitcoin's doing its big moves, whatever. Also altcoin winter. Up here at the 75 read, that is altcoin season. So your altcoin summer, and that's, usually when you see this line get up there, you're seeing Bitcoin dominance in a downtrend, and that's when the alts are really popping off. Now, for me personally, I've been in a few cycles now, and typically, if there's altcoins I'm interested in, I'm trying my best to accumulate those in altcoin winter. If I've studied a crypto I really like or whatever, I'm usually trying to accumulate there. And I've certainly done that this cycle. So I'm well allocated to the altcoins that I like. However, we see that right now, the altcoin season is still in the neutral zone. It's printing a 41, it's below 50. So I wouldn't look at this and say it's too late. So the way I'm handling this is if there's any altcoins that I want to be adding to right now, I'm looking for dips. So if I'm in any good altcoins that are pumping right now, if they dip, then I might still be interested in just nibbling a little bit and adding to positions at this level. I begin to have serious conversations with myself about taking large amount of chips off the table when this black line gets up into that altcoin summer. Now, I'll zoom this out just slightly like this. You can see that in a legitimate altcoin season, that it can be up there for a period of time, right? Like if we look back here in 2020, or sorry, that's 2021. I'll just go approximately. So March 20th, 2021, we began, a crazy alt season. And you can see that it came to an end roughly around June 16th. So about 3 months that gets up in that area. And that's when you're seeing crazy moves in the alt sector. So for me going forward, I'm looking for this line to get up in that area, you know, as a piece of confluence. I don't blindly trade any one particular chart, but once that line gets up in there, that's usually, I'm not buying altcoins. I'm definitely not buying. At that point, I'm having conversations as to what chips I want to take off the table. Do I want to take profit in all my positions, so on and so forth. So if you're going to be hitting subscribe, following along with the channel, this will be a fun chart. We'll monitor, we'll come back to it in the future. Now let's do a little bit of technical analysis on the Bitcoin chart here. So we got this little pullback coming in, and what we're seeing here is we're seeing the 10 simple moving average begin to rise aggressively, and we're seeing the 21 down below. Now, if this pullback continues, when the trading week opens up again, you know, one area that we could potentially watch is around 94,207 as a very short-term area of interest if this wants to keep bleeding to the downside. But we also have the 21 down here coming at 88,134. Not a heck of a lot to go off just yet because Bitcoin is in price discovery. Usually, when it comes to moving averages, I like to see the moving average line up with a key area of support or a key area of resistance. The more confluence, you know, alongside the moving average as well as the price structure, the more reliable it can be. So it's not super reliable, but those are two areas that, you know, we could pay attention to in the short term. But when we drop down to observe some of the momentum here, the RSI, we can see that a little bit of bearish divergence is starting to show up here in the extreme zone. And we can also see that at the time making this video that the RSI is dipping down below the EMA in the bullish control zone, mind you. But maybe this is giving us a bit of a signal that, hey, perhaps a little bit of a correction could be soon. But this is also interesting. Observe these lower highs on the RSI along the way. There's a bit of a trend happening here. So when the pullbacks or the corrections take place, we can kind of see that the RSI is getting more and more aggressive as it finds its bottoms along the way. So, you know, if we do get a correction, remains to be seen. We could maybe watch somewhere down around this trend line to see if the RSI finds support, picks itself back up, and maybe moves for another meaningful move to the upside. If we come down to the stochastic momentum, we are seeing the stochastic is basically nuclear. It can live in that zone for a long period of time when there's a major bull trend in progress. So it's not much to go by, but we are seeing a little bit of a cross to the downside while it is literally nuclear. Now, if we do come over to the CME chart, however, there's a little bit of a different story being told over here. And I do trust this chart a lot more. A lot of big traders are trading on this chart. And I've found it to be more reliable than the other charts that factor in all the week in price action. But we can see here on CME that price action did actually tag 100,000, just barely. But when we come down and we look at some of the momentum here, there's no bearish divergence present here. I mean, yes, the RSI is getting a little bit extreme here, but there's no major bearish divergence. Down here on the stochastic, it's quite nuclear, but still straight to the upside, at least at the time of when CME's closed for the trading week. So it's a little bit of a different story being told over here on this chart. So there's not a heck of a lot to go by. Right now, I'm merely an observer of price action. We've had a great move. Is there a correction imminent? At some point, we're certainly going to get a correction. And when we do get that correction, it's going to be a question of what kind of a correction do we get? Is it sideways consolidations, a little bit of sideways and down? And then what to watch for is rotations into the alt sector. So if Bitcoin takes a bit of a chill pill, keep an eye on the alt sector. You may see some good altcoin pumps. If we're seeing that, that's a bull market rotation. And to me is a very healthy and exciting sign that we're moving into the rotations of the coming bull market. So that's all I really have on a weekend as far as TA is concerned, as I just don't trust the price action on the weekend. But I thought a little fun update and talking about altcoins and potential alt seasons might be a little bit of fun. But anyways, that's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for coming by and checking out this video. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And until I do, have yourself a powerful day.